Good morning, and thank you for joining us today for Kentucky Spin's Tuesday Tips. Today, we are going to be talking about the impact of work on Social Security benefits, and we're so excited to have Carolyn Wheeler with us today. I'll tell you a little bit more about Carolyn in just a few moments, but I'm Stella Beard with Kentucky Spin, and I also have Kelly Smith and Michaela Evans on here with us with Kentucky Spin. We will be kind of facilitating the presentation today. But before we get started, I want to give you just a little bit of housekeeping tips. On the right-hand side of your screen, you will see a dashboard. There's a few things that I want to bring your attention to on the dashboard. We don't have any handouts today, but you will get a follow-up email that will have all of the links, everything that Carolyn is going to be presenting today. You will have that in a follow-up email later this afternoon, along with a certificate of completion for attending today's webinar. So be on the lookout for that. If for some reason you do not receive it, you can send me an email directly, and you should have my email address when you received your confirmation for registering for today's webinar. The other thing I want to draw your attention to is a little box that says questions. When you click the little arrow on that, it'll drop down and you can type a question in there. We are monitoring those questions, but we will not be asking Carolyn any of the questions until at the end of the presentation. So that gives her time to get through the material, and then we will open it up for questions at the end. And if for some reason we do not get to your question, I will make sure that Carolyn has it where she can respond to you personally on her own time. So before we give it to Carolyn, I wanted to go over just a little bit and tell you a little bit about Kentucky Spin, in case some of you on here are not familiar with Kentucky Spin. We are the Kentucky Special Parent Involvement Network. We are the Parent Training and Information Center for the state of Kentucky, and we're actually funded under the U.S. Department of Education. We're mandated through the Individuals with Disability Education Act. Every state has a PTI, and we have been the PTI for Kentucky since 1988. So that's a very long time, over 30 years. And I'm happy to say we just recently received funding for another 5 years. So we're very excited that we are still going to be able to provide training, information, and support for children, youth, and families with all types of disabilities. And we also work with professionals and provide training and information to people who also work with people with disabilities. But something we at Kentucky Spin do not do, we do not act as attorneys. So we are not going to be giving you any legal advice or anything like that, but we do empower families to effectively advocate for their children, and we provide that peer support that help families access needed information and resources. All of our staff at Kentucky Spin are either parents who have a child, a young adult with an intellectual or developmental disability. We either have a sibling or we have a disability ourselves. So I'm happy to say that we are able to provide that peer support to help families access that information that they need. I personally have a 24-year-old with an intellectual disability, so I've walked this all of my life, pretty much, or all of his life. And so I feel that, I can provide that support that families need because I've been there and I'm still walking it every day of my life now. This slide here we show on all of our webinars because I think it really says a lot of what our state and nation is going through right now. But together we can accomplish great things for our children. And none of us have all the answers, but we're all working through the pandemic and adjusting as we go. And we have definitely done that here at Kentucky Spin. Immediately in March, when the pandemic started, we went to an online platform for all of our webinars, trainings, resources, and so we have updated our website to reflect that, and we are offering webinars every Tuesday and Thursday, pretty much consistently for families so that they're in professionals, so they're still able to get the information that they need, just on a different platform right now. And so as long as we are going through this, we are going to provide resources and trainings still to families and professionals like we have been doing. So I'm very excited that Kentucky Spin did do that immediately when all of this happened in March. But I am very happy that we have Carolyn with us today. And Carolyn is actually the project director for the Human Development Institute. And Carolyn has lived in Kentucky, all of her life, I believe, and she has many, many, many years of experience in program development, training, and advocacy on behalf of people with disabilities and their families. And I can tell you from a personal perspective, Carolyn has helped me and my son with so many things, and I look up to her as a mentor, and she has been there to help anytime I have a question, and even when I call her and say, hey, can you do a webinar for us? She's actually going to be doing one next Thursday also, which I think will be wonderful, and she's going to be talking about stable accounts. So I'm excited about that. But Carolyn, I would love for you to get us going now. And can you hear me?
I sure can, Stella. Can you hear me okay?
I sure can. I am going to give you the control now so you can take us into this wonderful training regarding Social Security. So hang on, I'm going to make you the presenter.
All righty. So I'm going to hope you're seeing my screen and you're seeing the HDI website. So just let me know, Stella, if that's the case.
We see it.
All right, perfect. So I am employed at the Human Development Institute, and actually I'm just really honored and flattered to be here this morning. Actually, I'm a fan of yours, Stella. I've learned a great deal from you and Clayton, and I have so appreciated your all's willingness to make your private story public, because you have inspired and instructed countless, I would say countless parents, young adults and professionals. And so I appreciate your all sharing of your experience, your wisdom, your journey, because it's just so valuable. And so I did want to
thank you.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. And also other parents that work for SPIN. I'm in your debt. So I wanted to share the website just as a place to start, because if you're not familiar with it, would encourage you can see the URL, just hdi.uky.edu, and encourage you to bookmark it, check it out from time to time. At the moment, well, besides donating, there's nothing about any seminars, but we also offer seminars, usually quarterly, on topics that may or may not be of interest to you, but just know that just like SPIN, there's no cost. And also, if you're interested, I would encourage you to subscribe to HDI's quarterly update and events calendar, because then all of that would just flow into your inbox about whatever seminars there are or other opportunities. For example, right now, the Commonwealth Council on Developmental Disabilities is looking for public comment. Well, most likely at some point there'll be an email from HDI about that opportunity. So just again, encourage you to do that. And then I know there must be an easier way to get there, but this is how I get there now. I've complained. I've said this used to be on the homepage, but now it's not. So HDI does have an online resource guide, and I'm going to just copy and then open a new link. And again, I'm sure there's a better way to get there than this, but sometimes you find a way, and that's what you do. So here it is. So it's a online Kentucky Disability Resource Guide. It's also in a PDF format somewhere on the website. But just wanted to let you know, depending again on if you're a family member or a young adult with disabilities or professionals, you may find resources here that would be of help to you in your personal and professional life. So I'm going to close a couple of windows, and I'm actually going to start with a book. Now, I'm not promoting this book. I'm promoting the concept. There's several others out there, but this one I just wanted to share with you, because really adulting is what we need as family members, as young adults, as professionals, to be encouraging young adults and really all adults to become, regardless of impact of disability. And so this book, I'll scooch through here. Here we go. Here's the table of contents. So, and no, I have not read it, but I love the introduction that you can change the world. And isn't that the truth? For all of you who are parents, myself as a parent, I just see enormous capacity and potential and opportunity in young adults. And certainly I'm very blessed to have adult children who are making their impact and are making their way in the world. But as you reflect on your own childhood and upbringing, I'm going to assume that you can look back and reflect on the mentoring, the encouragement, perhaps the discipline in terms of admonishment or consequences when you made perhaps really, really bad choices, but that we really need to help young adults. It's a process and not an event. But overprotection really is what handicaps a young person with a disability, much more so, in my opinion, with about 40 years of being involved in this, than the actual disability. And that low expectations are very damaging. And one of the low expectations that I see that's very prevalent is that the family member, the person themselves, and even professionals will not engage in understanding what I'm going to talk about today. And that is really puts you at a great disadvantage. It's very important to me that if you're getting some kind of a monthly payment from the government, to understand what that is, and then what is the impact of work on that benefit. And I'm going to tell you, there's good news. And I would also say that, and I think those of you who are involved in this work, that work transforms people's lives. I'm assuming it's transformed yours. And so I love the second one, get a job, right? And I think this would be, again, to me, this book would be important regardless of impact of disability. Now there's another one. I know there are others out there, but just again, I'm wanting to promote the concept of adulting. And so I'm going to share a picture. So in this picture, you see me in the middle, my friend Linda to my right, and then Jennifer, who was one of her community living supports folks through the Michelle P. waiver at that time for over 7 years. And I want to tell you that Linda just turned 68 last month. Linda was born in 1952. So Estella can well tell you, she didn't go to public school. She, like me, well, I was born the following year. But I had the advantage of going to public school. And I can still remember going to public school in Paris, Kentucky. And I'm pretty sure there was a class in the basement, and there were these other students, but we never went to lunch with, those students. We didn't have recess. But again, there was not a free and appropriate public school education, for people until 1975. And so Linda, and actually her brother before her, for whom I played this role, didn't have the advantage of going to school. But let me tell you something, Linda worked. Linda worked probably at least from the time she was in her 20s or her 30s. And she recently retired. Let me show you this picture. I love it. Are you seeing that, Stella? That's Linda driving a motorboat. Now, I do want to clarify, there is someone on the motorboat who really is the driver, if you know what I mean.
Yes, we can see it fine. I love it. That's great.
Isn't that awesome? So this was on vacation. Actually, she's supported by an agency in Louisville called Dreams with Wings, and she was with some other folks with Dreams. And isn't that just a great picture? And if you had told me Linda would get on a boat and drive it, I would have said, not in my lifetime, because she's not a swimmer. But in any event, but to my point is that Linda has worked, and in fact, now at age 66, she retired. And Linda receives a substantial Social Security retirement benefit from her own work record. So that's what we should be helping people to aspire to, again, is to work in order to have more money, not only now, but in retirement, which for many people, at one point that seemed like a long way away to me, and now not so much. Now let's see if I can get out of here. I had this problem earlier. There we go. So I'm going to pull up this. I've got to move it over here. So this is a document in the Dropbox that Stella will send you a link to. So I am wrapping up my 40th year of being in a legal role for an individual with an intellectual disability and a representative payee. So I have 40 years of experience of being another person's representative payee. And what I can tell you from my 40 years is that Social Security is not your enemy. Your enemy is fear. Your enemy or enemies are fear and ignorance. And just fear and ignorance does not serve you well with this. Being clueless is not an ideal status. So in any event, that's what I'm wanting to try to dissipate today, is to try to help you grow your competence and confidence in really understanding about Social Security benefits, and then about the impact of work or having money in the bank on that particular benefit. So What I also want you to understand, again, as family members, and Stella and Clayton have a great story about initially, having guardianship, Stella being the guardian, and then Clayton now having his rights restored. I have served as a guardian for two individuals actually three, all three individuals, again, from 1980. So it's sequentially, not simultaneously. These are three different adults with intellectual disabilities whose families had no involvement in their life. So I was a guardian and power and representative payee for the first two. And what I want you to understand is that being somebody's guardian doesn't make you their representative payee. That is a separate relationship between a person and Social Security. And the person can be their own representative payee. However, my experience has been, and yours might be as well, most people with an intellectual disability need probably quite a bit of support and management of money, or they could be taken, well, they might not get their bills paid, or they could be taken advantage of. But there are lots of ways to do that now, especially with technology, to give people lots of independence, but still have someone who actually understands and can do the math. So I'll just come back to Linda. So in 2003, I actually was Linda's limited guardian. And I'm not sure it does talk about that here. And as it says, it wasn't for more than 5 years. So I took on that role from state guardianship. And so in 2008, that limited guardianship order expired, and I was learning about supported decision-making. And so I made the decision not to reapply or repetition the court for guardianship, but to work with an estate planning attorney here in Lexington, Karen Perch, to create or draft a power of attorney for Linda to sign, and then also advance directives. And so Karen did that. Karen met Linda. I wanted Karen to make a decision about whether or not Linda had the capacity to make informed consent, that if she signed this form, basically printed her name, she understood that I could still do everything I did for her before as her guardian. And I believed Linda had that decisional capability. Karen agreed. And so we executed a power of attorney. Karen did in 2008. And I can tell you this past year, Linda has had significant, she fell and broke her pelvis on April 21st. So let's just say that I've had the opportunity to test the power of my power of attorney. I live in Lexington, she lives in Louisville, and let me just tell you, scanning that document, giving it to people, opened every single door I've needed to advocate for Linda, to get her to get her services at Norton's Hospital, to get her admitted into rehab, to talk to doctors on her behalf, just everything. I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem. And in fact, today she's able to go with a staff person to a doctor's office to have some stitches removed because she recently had some biopsies done. And if anything needs to be signed, I mean, frankly, Linda can print her name. I don't have to be there. I don't have to be there when she gets a flu shot. She can do that. She can sign her name. So just again, wanting you to get knowledge is power about understanding the differences in these roles. I am in no way putting down guardianship. Just understand that there could be a lesser restrictive alternative that could serve the need with less, I would just say less onerousness. I don't have to file reports with the court, and I can still do, again, everything I did for Linda before. Now that has relevance to this conversation, because if the person has a representative payee, that person is responsible for reporting the person's wages. That's where I'm also wanting to point out, unless the person themselves can do it. It is not the responsibility of the employment specialist, the VR counselor. It really is the beneficiary's responsibility or their representative payee, if they have one, and preferably both together, figure out how to do that. So again, this form is also in Spanish, will be in this Dropbox that Stella is going to give you access to when this presentation is over. So, to share, I'm really going to focus most of my energy and attention on the impact of employment on SSI, or supplemental security income. And the reason for that is that I'm, again, assuming that, again, Kentucky Spin's audience is primarily school age, young adults. So that's where I'm going to focus a lot of my energy on that. Because there's a specific work incentive for students that's very, very important and powerful, as well as something called the age 18 redetermination. So this website, if you're not familiar with it, I encourage you to bookmark it, KentuckyWorks.org. It is all about really increasing the number of youth with autism, functional mental disabilities, and multiple disabilities to exit high school to be employed in competitive integrated employment. So the website has lots of resources across the topical areas here for people with disabilities, for families, post-secondary, for employers, for professionals, employment specialists, and educators, and then specific training modules and resources. I'm going to click on resources for people with disabilities, which will take us to another page, again, now with lots of other items. Self-determination, self-advocacy. If you're a pre-employment transition staff person, pre-ETS, or if your family member's receiving pre-ETS services, this to me would be a great website to review, as that could be a billable service, because there's just so much great information here. By getting a job while in high school, I would love it if some of you would type in the chat box what you did when you were in high school that was legal for pay. And it might have, so I babysat, and then I actually had my first, I guess, paid job with, somebody else taking out the payroll taxes probably when I was 17. So if you can just type in the chat box, I don't know that I can see it, Stella, but if you mowed grass or you babysat or you worked at Dairy Queen, but that you worked in high school, and I see there are at least 39 attendees. So and we know, actually, we collect data at HDI. It's called the post-yo-yo, 1 year out outcomes. So like 1 year out of high school, what are students who had IEPs in high school doing? And our data shows that those students who had a job in high school, participated in extracurricular activities, not surprisingly, are doing better. So
okay, now, Carolyn, I'll read some of them to you.
Yeah, please. I get a drink of water. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, worked at Subway, babysitting, fast food, Wendy's, Dairy Queen, Druthers. Worked at a state park, babysat, mowed lawns. I worked at the bowling alley. We had someone that said they worked at a clothing store. So lots of different. Someone worked at their grandfather's manufacturing company. So those are a lot of different ones.
Yeah, great. So thank you for your participation. So I'm going to click now on Find Services to Help Me, like Medicaid and SSI. Now this isn't obviously in the Dropbox. Some of these handouts are, because I don't have a link in the Dropbox. So you again just know KentuckyWorks.org and then can find this. So all of these documents, these infographics, my colleague Jeff White has created, and these are all, some of these, I'm going to show you where you can download them from the video. They're also in the Dropbox. Jeff will be updating them for 2021. I'm going to go here to Kentucky Works SSI 101 video. So there were 6 of us who worked on this, including Jeff and myself. So I just want to point out that all of these are hyperlinks, and I refer to the majority of these documents in the presentation. I should have pointed out, this is not a presentation on how to apply for SSI, but here is a document from Social Security about that. And there's actually a document here about representative payee information. If you are one, you need to know you have to do an annual report to Social Security, and it's not a good idea to ignore it. So I'm going to click on view the video link. And this is the truth. And I want to point out the title is very intentional. The truth, not what your neighbor says, not what the person at the gas station says. This is really, what does Social Security say about SSI, supplemental security income, and working? The truth about SSI, supplemental security income, and working. Created by Jeff White with Kentucky Works and Carolyn Wheeler, Kentucky Supported Employment Training Project with the Human Development Institute at the University of Kentucky. This presentation is directed to the person who actually receives the SSI payment to help them better understand that working and maintaining eligibility for an SSI cash payment and Medicaid can be compatible. If you are reviewing the presentation for a family member, please understand the you in the slides refers to the person who receives the SSI benefit.
SSI stands for Supplemental Security Income. It is intended to supplement other money you might earn from a job or be given. The funding for the SSI payment comes from the federal treasury and out of the federal budget. SSI is an independent program of the Social Security Administration, but it is not Social Security. In other words, a person who receives an SSI payment has not themselves paid into Social Security for the benefit they are receiving. Qualifying for SSI provides a person with supplemental income up to $783 per month for a single person and $1,175 per month for an eligible couple in 2020. SSI also provides health insurance through Medicaid. This amount can vary from year to year depending on whether or not Congress approves a cost of living adjustment. This typically is announced by Social Security by the 1st of November. This means the amount could increase next year or stay the same. SSI requires payment for living expenses. SSI supplements your income so you can afford to pay your fair share of your living expenses. If you do not pay your fair share, the Social Security Administration may reduce your monthly cash payment by as much as 1/3 of the usual payment. Social Security's website at www.socialsecurity.gov has a great deal of helpful information about all of the programs administered by the Social Security Administration, including additional information on SSI and on working while you are receiving an SSI payment. If you have been receiving SSI as a child and you are approaching your 18th birthday, you need to read Social Security's book entitled What You Need to Know About Your Supplemental Security Income When You Turn age 18. This booklet is available on Social Security's website. I will now point out several key points. On page 1, under the introduction, it tells you that this booklet is for youth who receive supplemental security income and their parents, teachers, health providers, caregivers, or representatives. Your SSI could change when you turn 18 as you prepare to transition to higher education and employment. If you look down where it says the age 18 redetermination, when you turn 18, Social Security will review your eligibility for continued SSI benefits based on disability rules for adults. These are different from the disability rules for you as a child. Looking on page 2 at the top of the page, it states, our disability rules for adults are different from our disability rules for children. Historically, about 1/3 of children lose their SSI eligibility following the age 18 redetermination. SSI is concerned about 2 kinds of income. Unearned income, which is money or some other benefit you receive without having to perform some kind of work or service. The second kind is earned income, which is money or some other benefit you receive because you perform some kind of work or service. So for purposes of this presentation, we are focusing on earned income, which is money you would be paid from a job or self-employment. I would now like to show you what Social Security says will happen to your SSI payment when you go to work. You need to obtain their booklet entitled Working While Disabled, How We Can Help. You can get this booklet by downloading it from the socialsecurity.gov website or from the Kentucky Works website. If you look at the table of contents, you will see that there's information on both Social Security disability and the Supplemental Security Income or SSI program rules. You would want to read starting from page 7. On page 14 of this booklet, it tells you how your earnings affect your SSI payments. So you can see in the middle of the page an example. So if your only income is SSI and the money you make from your job, we, meaning Social Security, does not count the first $85 of your monthly gross earnings. And then each month, we reduce your SSI benefits 50 cents for every dollar that you earn over $85. So in the example, you can see that you work and you earn $1,000 gross in a month. And your only income comes from your earnings and your SSI payment. So you can see that Social Security would subtract $85 from the 1,000, which leaves $915. That number is then divided by 2, which equals $457.50. It then states we would reduce your SSI payment by $457.50. This is a picture of Danny Waits, who works full-time at the Best Buy warehouse in Shepherdsville, Kentucky. Danny actually worked his way off of Social Security disability benefits. He has been able to buy his own home due to his income from his job. Social Security has a formula which is applied to any money earned from a job for a person who receives SSI payments. I think you will be surprised to learn the lower your SSI payment is because of money you earn from a job, the more money you will have. Check out the adjustments to SSI payments document on the Kentucky Works website to see how the formula works. The Truth About Working While Receiving SSI is an infographic created by Jeff White, which you can download as one of the documents with this presentation. It explains that SSI provides supplemental income in a limited monthly amount for an individual and a different amount for an eligible couple and health insurance through Medicaid. The next section shows Social Security's formula that you can work and still earn money while receiving an SSI cash payment. The first $85 you earn each month does not change your SSI benefit. After that, you get to keep 50 cents of your SSI payment for every $1 earned. The third section states if your only income is from SSI and your job, when your paycheck reaches what Social Security calls the break-even point, which is over $1,600 gross per month, then your SSI cash benefit will stop. But you will still receive Medicaid until your income reaches Kentucky's threshold amount, which is over $30,000 per year. So why settle for just your SSI payment of $783 per month when you can work, most likely still have an SSI cash payment, money from your job, and Medicaid coverage? Social Security also has work incentives. Work incentives are special rules which make it possible for people with disabilities receiving supplemental security income to work and receive higher monthly SSI payments by further reducing the amount of your earned income that is countable. SSI work incentives include impairment-related work expenses, blind work expenses, student earned income exclusion, plans to achieve self-support, and Section 1619B, which is about maintaining your Medicaid eligibility, even if your SSI payment went to zero. You can read about all of these in the Working While Disabled, How We Can Help, which I have previously referenced. There is a work incentive specifically for students entitled Student Earned Income Exclusion. The Student Earned Income Exclusion is described on page 8 of this book and states if you're under age 22, go to school, or regularly attend a training program, we don't count some of your earnings. It then goes on to detail what those amounts are for the current year. The Student Earned Income Exclusion applies to students with disabilities if they are under age 22, go to school, or regularly attend a training program. Then Social Security does not count some of your earnings. In 2020, Up to $1,900 of your gross earnings a month will not count to a maximum of $7,670 when your SSI monthly benefit is calculated. This is stated on page 8 in Social Security's book, Working While Disabled, How We Can Help. What this means is there is no reduction in a student's SSI payment when working unless their gross monthly earnings exceed $1,900 up to a maximum of $7,670 per year. You may be asking, what about my eligibility for Medicaid if I go to work? Again, Social Security's Working While Disabled, How We Can Help book answers this question. On page 16, it states, in general, if work income causes your SSI to stop, your Medicaid coverage will continue even after your SSI payments stop until your income reaches a certain level. That level varies with each state and reflects the cost of health care in your state. That amount for Kentucky will be at least $30,000 gross before taxes for a year. Section 1619B is what Social Security calls continued Medicaid coverage for people who are eligible for SSI, but whose cash payment has been suspended because of earned income. So people who qualify for this work incentive are eligible for SSI, have Medicaid, and are employed with earned income, meaning they have a job. The person would continue to be eligible for Medicaid coverage until your gross annual income reaches a certain point. And as I've stated previously, that would be at least $30,000 annually in Kentucky. You would still need Medicaid, meaning you are using the coverage, and you would still need to limit your countable resources to $2,000. So where can you go for help? The Social Security Administration provides benefits counseling free of charge through 2 Work Incentives Planning and Assistance Programs, also known as WIPA, here in Kentucky. So for the western part of the state, the Center for Accessible Living provides that service, and for Lexington and East, Goodwill in Lexington provides that service. You can see their contact information on the slide. Because each agency serves half the state, staff in each of these WIPA programs are typically not able to meet with you in person. The consultation would be conducted over the phone. WIPA programs do have priorities set for them by the Social Security Administration. Their priorities are to assist transition age students as well as other beneficiaries, but who themselves are very serious about work and most likely even have a job offer. If your needs do not fit in the WIPA priority model, or if you need assistance more quickly than they can provide, and your employment supports are being funded through the Office for Vocational Rehabilitation, contact your vocational rehabilitation counselor, and he or she may be able to arrange for a benefits analysis through another resource available to them. If your employment services are going to be funded through the Supports for Community Living Waiver or the Michelle P. Waiver, contact Jeff White at 502-782-6228 or email him at jeff.white@ky.gov. If you receive an SSI payment, you are required to share certain information with Social Security. So the person receiving the benefit or their representative payee is responsible to find out when information should be reported and how it should be reported. This can be found in the book, Working While Disabled, How We Can Help. You need to report to Social Security when you go to work, what you do at your job, how much money you make, and any changes that happen. This must occur on a monthly basis. You also have to tell Social Security how many hours you work and anything you have to pay for related to your disability in order to work, as that may then not be counted and your SSI payment may in fact be greater once you leave school. SSI is a means-tested program. This means that you can only have limited resources in order to qualify for both SSI and Medicaid. So what are resources? According to Social Security, a resource is money or something you own that you can easily turn into cash. Your countable resources must not be worth more than $2,000 for an individual or $3,000 for a couple. But there are many things that do not count toward the resource limit. These include the house you live in, one vehicle used to transport you or a member of your household, life insurance policies with a face value of $1,500 or less per person, burial plots or spaces for you or your immediate family, household goods and personal effects, and property you or your spouse would use in a trade or business or on your job. In addition, money that you set aside under a plan to achieve self-support, which is a Social Security work incentive that is explained in the book, Working While Disabled, How We Can Help, and funds properly deposited in a qualified special needs trust or pool trust, or ABLE accounts also do not count. So there are ways for you to save money for the future and not jeopardize your eligibility for SSI or Medicaid. People whose disability occurred before the age of 26 can now save money for qualified disability expenses through an ABLE account. ABLE stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience. Kentucky's ABLE program is called Stable Kentucky and is administered through the Kentucky State Treasurer's Office. Let's look at some of the important features of the program you can find out about on their website, www.stablekentucky.com. The website will tell you everything you need to know about Stable Kentucky and also how to open an account. So looking up at the top of the page, you can see that you would open an account online. You don't go to a bank, you go to this website in order to open an account. So to find out more about stable accounts, you can just scroll through the page. So stable accounts give people with special needs more independence and financial security. What are the benefits? There are tax-free earnings. So earnings on savings are tax deferred and tax-free when used to pay for qualified expenses. Financial benefits are not affected. So balances and distributions do not affect needs-based financial aid such as Medicaid or SSI. And participants can request their own stable card that can be used to spend money on qualified expenses. So who is eligible? You can click on, are you eligible? Take our quiz in order to make sure that you are eligible. Again, your disability has to have occurred before the age of 26, and you must have documentation that shows that. Stable accounts are not checking or savings accounts. They are investment accounts. They allow a person, their family members, friends, anyone to contribute to their account up to $15,000 per year. And if you are employed and you do not participate in an employer's retirement account, you could contribute up to an additional $12,140 of income. You can only have one account, but again, anyone could contribute to your account on your behalf. There are 5 different investment options, including 4 mutual fund-based investments and 1 FDIC insured investment. And you have the option to change your investment choices twice every year. It would be very important for you to understand you have to use the money in your account to pay for any expense related to your disability. But that's not just medical expenses. Examples of things you can use your stable account for include basic living expenses, housing, transportation, education, assistive technology, employment training, personal support services, legal fees, health and wellness, financial management. And again, you could click here to learn more. If you still have questions, there is a telephone number 1-800-439-1653, or you can email team@stableaccountant.com with your questions. There's also at the bottom of the website a section for frequently asked questions or how to contact them. I hope this presentation has been helpful to you in understanding how you can go to work, still maintain an SSI cash payment, and have a lot more opportunities both financially and personally as you transition from high school into the adult world.
So again, this is on Kentucky Works website. I will be updating it because the SSI amount actually will increase slightly in 2021, but the concepts will not change. So I want to go to the Social Security website. If you've never been there, you're missing out because it's incredibly helpful, and I think it's easy to find, and you can probably get answers to many of your questions on this website. So first, I'm going to suggest, if you yourself have not created your own Social Security account, and you can listen to Susie Orman on why you should, that you will. Now, unless you're 60, you no longer receive that statement in the mail that maybe you got 5 or 6 years ago that tells you about where you are in terms of what your payroll taxes and your employer's payroll taxes, or if you're self-employed, you pay both, are doing for you. And so, for example, if you have minor children, it will tell you if they would qualify for a survivor's benefit. And let me just go up here to the menu. When you see the benefits, when people say they receive Social Security, you have to know what kind. Social Security administers programs for retirement, disability, then Medicare through there, survivors, and supplemental security income. So as you can see, supplemental security income, and as I said in the video, it's administered by Social Security, but it is not Social Security. The person who receives the SSI payment has not worked in order to receive the benefit. They are eligible. People who receive a disability, retirement, or survivor's benefit, somebody's worked and contributed payroll taxes, which is approximately 15.3% of your gross income every year. So creating an account will let you know what your payroll taxes are doing for you. And so just would encourage you to do that. And around supplemental security income, just if you click on this page, it tells you what it is. It tells you what you must report to us. People, I will get emails, well, I only worked for a week. Do I have to report it? Yes. I mean, and frankly, Social Security expects you to report illegal earnings or cash under the table. And actually, you're harming yourself. When people work, quote, under the table, they are harming, not only is it fraud, but they are harming themselves, because then there's no payroll taxes going into their Social Security number. So unlike Linda, who has a significant retirement benefit, they won't. That's where it comes from. I mean, you don't get a Social Security retirement benefit because you meet or you become that age, which is 66 for some folks, 66 in some months for others, and probably for most of you at 67. You'll be eligible for a benefit because you worked and you contributed through your own Social Security number. So in any event, there's a lot of information on the website about SSI, including information about stable accounts and other topics. So I just would encourage you to spend some time on the Social Security website. Again, as Francis Bacon and Thomas Jefferson said, and I'm not sure I still have that quote anymore, but that knowledge is power. Ignorance is not bliss. It's just not bliss, and it just does not serve people well. Now, here it is. I wanted to know who created that quote. And so this is just evidently Thomas Jefferson used this phrase in correspondence on at least 4 occasions, and one of them refers to probably, I'm guessing, the University of Kentucky, where he states in 1820, I'm guessing, I'm not positive, he's talking about establishing a university in Virginia. And I don't know why he spells knowledge without a W, but I'm guessing because the W is silent. In any event, knowledge is power. and it does help you to be a better advocate for yourself, and it's also part of, in my opinion, adulting. So I would also like to introduce you to this amazing website. So if you forget everything I've talked about today, and hopefully you're going to spend some time looking at the materials on the Dropbox or on the Kentucky Works website at some point, it is called DB101. So you can see the URL is ky.d as in disability, B as in benefits, 101.org. And all of these in blue, getting past the myths, the truth about working, supplemental security income, Social Security disability insurance, et cetera. These are all hyperlinks. So I'm actually going to click on Social Security disability insurance as we wrap up, just so you know, yes, there's another benefit that people with disabilities could be receiving, depending upon whether or not, again, there is what's called insured status. So as it says on this page, you must be insured. You have to have worked long enough to be covered by SSDI. So that's where your Social Security retirement statement that you can get online will tell you, have you worked long enough? Have you contributed enough to have what's called insured status? And then it would tell you what your potential benefit would be at this point in time. And then also you must have a disability that meets Social Security standards. And then here it talks about there are adults whose disability occurred before the age of 22 who may be receiving a benefit from a parent's work record or from a spouse's. That wouldn't be true for students, but a widow or widower, age 50 or older, who becomes disabled and who does not have enough credits for themselves to be insured could qualify for a benefit on a deceased spouse's record. So I'm going to show you, this is an infographic. This is on the Kentucky Works website, again, about working if the person receives SSDI. Now, I can appreciate there may be a lot of you on this webinar this morning whose clients, job seekers receive this. Again, I've not focused on this so much because, again, I'm assuming the audience is mostly families who have young adults in high school, but this also talks about how people can work and still receive an SSDI payment. There are also, so they can work up to $1,260 per month gross. It's going to increase next year. Also, there are people who can work their way off benefits. And again, I can just tell you the sky doesn't fall. My friend Linda received SSI until she had enough credits and her benefit changed to SSDI, and she still maintained her SSDI cash payment, at least for her entire lifetime. Her entire adult lifetime. Once she transitioned in 2000, I became her from SSI to SSDI. I became her payee in 2003, and she worked. She worked part-time. She sometimes worked full-time. She did not earn above whatever was substantial gainful activity at the time. And then at age 66, when she retired, she now receives a retirement benefit, again, off of her own work record. So Stella, I see that we have about 6 minutes. I'm going to see what kind of questions we have. I'm willing to stay on longer if we don't get through all of them, if that's okay with you all. And we may not have any.
Oh, no, we've got him.
Okay, all right. So I'll do my best, okay? When we come back to
got him. A while back, somebody, I think it was on some of the first slides, it says, what are personal effects? They wanted to know what are considered personal effects.
Well, personal effects, I have a very sophisticated definition. It's just your stuff. So, I mean, a person can have clothes, they could have a computer, a big screen TV, furniture. It's your personal possessions. So social SSI and Medicaid don't count those as resources. So that's what that means.
Okay, that makes sense. Somebody just asked, I just saw it pop up. I do have more though, but what kind of work does Linda do? Well,
Linda she worked in sheltered workshops. And then from 2003, when I became that role in her life, she did work for the Courtyard Marriott for a while. She worked at Closed Mentor. She worked at a grocery store. And she also had a pretty long, and she did some of these at the same time. She had more than one part-time job at a time. She worked through Zoom group and this would be considered actually billable as a day training program. It's more like an enclave, but at UPS in Louisville, got paid on a piece rate. So that was the kind of work she did do. And there are probably other, she worked at
That's,
Hardee's.
that's great, though. That's great because it just shows you, you know, even though you work, you know, more than one job, even how all of that adds up to go toward her benefits later
That's right.
on. That's just amazing.
That's right, Stella. She wouldn't, again, she is now a woman of leisure. I mean, she truly has a great retirement. I mean, she has Derby Dinner Playhouse. See, I should be quiet. But I mean, she can do things. I'll just say that she can do things. She has her own apartment. She has a bunny rabbit that costs her at least $100 a month in supplies. You know, she can do things. And she has a stable account that we'll talk about next week. So go ahead. What else?
Yes. Okay, this is kind of stable related, and we might, you know, maybe you can answer it quickly, and then we can go into more detail next week. But it says, are there any drawbacks to having a stable account?
Well, not spending it would be a drawback. I mean, seriously, if you put money in it, you don't spend it. I mean, Medicaid can have a claim when you die, but the whole point to me, and I think you would agree, Stella, right? You plan to spend it. I mean, what it is that, I mean, Clayton, I'm assuming, plans to spend it. So the only other,
Absolutely.
I don't think this is a drawback. Again, I just think this is what you need to understand. A state, again, it's a 529A account, so it's in the same tax category as a college savings plan. You have to understand what you can spend it on. You have to, and it's a wide range. But as an example, I used Linda's stable account to buy hearing aids. I used her money out of her regular account to buy her Derby Dinner Playhouse tickets. You know, I don't see those as a qualified disability expense. So you have to not.
That would just be something you would have in just your, you know, regular checking account for entertainment and stuff.
Exactly. I don't equate the IRS and fun in the same sentence. That's just how I look at it. So, I mean,
exactly.
I guess, and you know, who's asking that question, like, what is it you want to save for? But look at all the things you could save for. I mean, people.
Well, and what we're saving for Clayton is a home. You know,
home.
we're saving what we want to do.
Right. So, I mean, again, you don't have to think about having different buckets of money. Linda still has a savings account. I bet Clayton does too. She has a checking account. Mm-hmm. Just like I have a checking, a savings. I have anyway, you know, you have to think about buckets of money, you know.
Right.
And
exactly.
So what else?
Well, another question is there somewhere a person with a disability can get help get in-person help understanding the SSI earned income formula? And I think you probably touched on that really with the disability planning benefit, you know, the benefits planning that you were talking about.
You really can if you'll drill down on this. Okay. I mean, I'll show you right here where I've clicked on, all right, if you went back to home, it's like 3 clicks. Well, shoot, I already clicked one in between. All right, here's the home page. Click on SSI. Click on how SSI counts your income. Okay, that's 2 clicks. Scroll down to the bottom and here's the formula. And the Working While Disabled book gives you the formula. Watch my video again. I give you the formula. If you want to know what it means, you can go here and go try it now. But see, you have to know what's unearned income. Well, that's not SSI, okay? What's earned income? That's what you earn. So if you earn $1,000 a month, not 10,000. This will do the math for you. And it shows you where your SSI payment will be reduced by $457, and then the new SSI benefits that plus the 1,000. That's what you got. I also have on the Kentucky Works website. I have it for 2020. I've got it. This one I'm showing you for 2021. This is called the adjustments. So next year SSI goes to $794 in January, but you can see the same thing. So if you earned $1,000 next year, your SSI payment's still reduced by the same amount, but you have a little bit more money because the SSI payment, because you're subtracting $457.50 from $794 instead of $783. And this is not rocket science.
I think the thing that's so great that I know when I talk to families that they've struggled with is that, you know, yes, that SSI payment may go down, but they're making more money. And
that's right.
That's an okay thing.
That's right. And if you look at the SSI amount, it's really the lower the SSI payment is because of work, the more money you have. So you hang on to the SSI, like you don't take the extra hours, you don't take the raise, you don't take the better job. So you're just leaving money on the table. You are leaving money on the table. That's all I can say.
That's right. And they're still going to receive their medical card. They're still going to get their benefit. They're still going to get the medical card.
Right, as long as they don't have too many resources, Stella. When people say they went to work and lost their benefits, you know what, you all, there are lots of reasons why people might have lost their benefit. They might have in the SSI eligibility, they might have been a determination they're no longer disabled. They might have too much money in the bank. I mean, there's just lots of reasons people might lose their benefits, and it has nothing to do with work. Now, also, I talk about this in the video, and this is in the Dropbox. I've lost the Dropbox link, but okay, so you have these two WIPA programs. They will tell you what I've told you for free. So Goodwill does the one, it provides services to all these counties. Now, these people, I mean, WIPA, they serve half the state. So they're going to do it by Zoom or, you know, by phone. I recommend Zoom or this, you know, some format like this. And then the Center for Accessible Living is the other half of the state. So what I can tell you all with unequivocally is that there is information. It's just, it's making a decision. This is important enough to start to understand it.
That's right. That's right.
And here's the information there. But if you just like refer somebody to the center or to Goodwill, and if you're the family member or you're the young adult or you're the person or you're the employment specialist and you never read the report, what's the point? I'm sorry, you can tell my cynicism is
exactly.
But they do this great work and then people don't read the report. Or, yeah, I mean, to me, it would be like, I don't know, you have cancer, and if I mean, you just wouldn't read about it. You know what I mean? Wouldn't you learn about it? That's not even a good analogy, but just that if you're going to get a benefit every single month from the government from your whole life, would it not make sense? Would it not be wise to understand it? I mean,
exactly.
And there are things you have to do to maintain that benefit. It's not like you do nothing. So I would go back to what you said, Stella, just this DB 101. It's, again, you have to be literate, but spend some time on it. You could also look at look at the video again. This book, Working While Disabled, How We Can Help, read it. I do a training for employment specialists, and they have to read it supposedly to take a quiz. I mean, this might take you 15 minutes. Now, it's 15 minutes. You have 15 minutes. I bet most of us, I don't. I bet many people spend that much time, or they spend hours on Facebook. This will benefit you more. I mean, this just wish
exactly.
You won't get mad.
It's just a commitment you have to make to learn. I mean, like you said, knowledge is power, and you're not going to get that unless you take the time to learn and understand it the best that you can.
That's right, the best you can, and then reach out for other people. And I'm also willing, Stella knows how to find me. I'm willing to try to help, but I tell you what, I cannot tell you anything about what will happen to your benefit. I'm going to go here unless you know what you get. And I think that's just irresponsible. I think it's irresponsible, frankly, I'll just say it, since somebody's looking at me, to get a benefit and not know what it is. That's just not wise.
That's very well explained. Exactly.
So you have to know
I think that's all of our questions that I see up right now. Some of the, there was a stable question, which I know we're going to go into much more detail next week on that. And I think I asked you that one. Someone just said they have to leave for another meeting. Thank you. It was very informative. So I think this is great information. Just to let everyone know, we did record this today. So it also will be available on our website within a week or so. We send it off to have it closed caption, and then we will upload it to our website. So that will be there. We can send a link out to folks, if they want to hear it again. So that's really good. But I'm going to take the controls back from you.
Sounds
really
great.
quick.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to show a couple of slides here at the end, and then we really, really appreciate all that you did and explained so much to us, which I think is so important. That just taking the time to understand, just understand a little bit more about it, I think just makes it a lot better for folks. So as I said earlier, we do have webinars every Tuesday and Thursday on a variety of topics. I'm now scheduling them into January and February. We've got some wonderful topics that we're even going to continue on into 2021. And for some information or up-to-date resources on anything to do with COVID-19, education related, or any other information about COVID, you can also find that on our webpage. And we also as HDI does, send out what we call our Kentucky Spend e-news. You can register and sign up to receive that. We usually send them out every other week with some wonderful information. And then as you leave today, you will have an evaluation that will pop up at the end. If you could please fill that out for us, it certainly helps us plan for our future webinars, and also lets us know how we did. And we just appreciate you all joining us. And Carolyn, thank you again for such wonderful information. And I sure hope this helped families. And again, we will have next Thursday a webinar on stable accounts. So if you're interested and want to know more information on that, please tune back in. We're going to be talking to some families who actually have stable accounts. So I think that will be really great information. So Carolyn, thank you. And I hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Thank you, Stella, and thank everyone for joining us. Take care. Be safe.
Bye.